Walking into the most restricted corridors of Buckingham Palace right now reveals an atmosphere so frigid it feels like an absolute ice age has settled over the entire British monarchy. Long before the public caught a whisper of what was happening behind closed doors, a massive, silent crisis was threatening to tear the royal household apart from the inside out. The problem wasn't a public scandal or a tabloid headline. It was an explosive, hidden war over a secret $200 million estate network left behind by Queen Elizabeth II.
She becomes my queen consort.
And I felt, you're losing people every single time you have those headlines. We all get that there's a really big, urgent message.
The tension was thick enough to suffocate, with senior legal advisors moving frantically through restricted meetings and transferring confidential files under heightened military-grade security. Everyone inside the palace knew that an unforgivable line had been crossed, and the entire institution was resting on a razor's edge. The true crisis centered around a terrifying panic that centuries of royal heritage were about to be cheapened, commercialized, and sold off to the highest bidder by individuals outside the direct line of succession. Palace insiders were completely stunned, watching a desperate power struggle unfold that threatened to permanently alter the identity of the crown. If you look at the digital streets, the public was already sensing the danger. A viewer named @StuntGang3900 sharply pointed out the immediate problem, noting that certain individuals appeared to be taking advantage of King Charles III's health issues to make a desperate play for power and wealth before anyone could stop them. There was a palpable fear that the monarchy was drifting toward a dangerous era of corporate greed, and the palace was scrambling to execute an emergency operation that had been quietly rehearsed for years just to survive the impending fallout. To truly understand how this high-stakes silent war reached a boiling point, you have to go back to the very beginning, to a private world protected by legal brick walls that the public was never supposed to see. The estate in question was never openly discussed alongside famous royal holdings like Balmoral or Sandringham. Instead, it existed in total silence, hidden beneath private covenants and legal barriers that kept its ownership completely off ordinary royal records. For decades, it sat as a protected reserve of royal wealth, but its true purpose was far deeper than money alone. It was Queen Elizabeth's ultimate final gamble, a carefully engineered defense system built by a monarch who had spent 70 years studying the strengths, weaknesses, and raw ambitions inside her own family. As investigators began digging into the legal framework, they realized the late Queen had foreseen a future dominated by celebrity culture, influencer status, and commercial exploitation. She knew that the greatest threat to the crown might not come from the outside world, but from deep within her own household. The tension truly began to escalate when a series of highly confidential development concepts began quietly circulating among advisors connected to Queen Camilla and her son Tom Parker Bowles. While these plans never became official royal policy, their mere existence sent shockwaves through the late Queen's private circle long before her passing. The proposals weren't harmless business conversations. They were multi-million-pound luxury hospitality and heritage branding concepts aimed at wealthy international clients. One blueprint explored transforming sections of the protected, historic royal property into exclusive countryside retreats, while another detailed premium food branding tied to historic Windsor associations and estate farmlands. To make matters even more alarming, whispers began spreading that foreign investors from the Middle East and parts of Europe had already expressed intense interest in forming lucrative private partnerships. To Camilla's camp, this was viewed as a brilliant move toward modernization and financial opportunity, but to critics inside the palace, it represented an unforgivable betrayal of tradition. Senior aides watched in horror, fearing that the monarchy was drifting toward a corporate lifestyle brand. They realized that centuries of protected national heritage were about to become vulnerable to branding strategies and outside financial influence. This commercial ambition is precisely what triggered a massive backlash among royal purists and the public alike. When viewers discovered the nature of these luxury proposals, the outrage was immediate and fierce. A commenter named @Leatherneck1978 expressed the collective disgust of the audience, asking with pure frustration, "Food critic and art whatever doesn't pay enough? They gotta steal? Pitiful." There was a growing public realization that certain extended family members were trying to profit off an institution they had no constitutional right to touch. Another viewer, @JamesSutherland I7H, highlighted the core of the conflict, noting that the entire situation required a firm hand to ensure that Camilla's family don't profit from anything from the royal family. The public was drawing a hard line in the sand, viewing Tom Parker Bowles not as an innovative businessman, but as an outsider trying to leverage the prestige of the crown for private gain. This clash of philosophies created a deep, uncomfortable rift within the palace walls, splitting advisors into rival factions and setting the stage for an unprecedented legal showdown that would change the balance of power forever. Prince William viewed the entire situation through an entirely different lens than the advisors pushing for luxury expansion. For William, the hidden estate existed to preserve historical continuity and national identity, not to generate private prestige or fund the lifestyle of non-bloodline relatives. He saw the proposals as an active danger to the long-term survival of the monarchy. According to internal sources, William had quietly worked alongside the Queen for years between 2017 and 2021, making discreet visits to properties connected to the estate. These trips were completely erased from official royal schedules, drawing zero public attention at the time. Behind closed gates, the Queen had personally walked William through secret archive chambers, wartime records, and private collections, essentially training him to become the fierce guardian of her final vision. He studied the legal structures and reviewed confidential documents, preparing for a long-anticipated conflict. The public recognized this deep ancestral connection immediately, as @Harpreet Bular 5128 passionately declared in the comments, "William is Diana's son. He is legitimate royalty," adding that it is unfair and insulting to William and his sincere and total commitment to the kingdom to even consider anyone else on his level. William was armed with a sense of duty that money couldn't buy, and as the commercial pressures mounted, he prepared to activate a hidden legal trap that would permanently alter the destiny of the House of Windsor.
The emergency trust procedures were triggered with a quiet, lethal precision that left Queen Camilla's camp completely blindsided and staring at an impenetrable legal brick wall. The activation of Queen Elizabeth's private covenant system wasn't just a routine transfer of wealth, it was a cold, calculated consolidation of power executed overnight under the cover of absolute palace silence. The second the late Queen's final instructions were verified, senior legal advisors locked down the archive rooms, changed the security codes, and completely restricted access permissions across the estate network. Camilla's allies, who had previously enjoyed open access to these departments to pitch their luxury development ideas, suddenly found their credentials revoked. It was a swift, unyielding maneuver. What investigators and royal correspondents gradually uncovered beneath the surface of this sudden lockdown was a legal mechanism so airtight, so brilliantly orchestrated that it stunned even the most experienced royal archivists. Hidden deep inside the sealed legal terms, written in the late Queen's own hand, was a highly specific condition restricting any influence from what she officially described as non-direct legacy interests. The wording was highly unusual, but devastatingly clear to palace lawyers. It meant that if you were not in the direct hereditary line of succession, you were completely and permanently locked out of the estate network. The discovery of the Queen's handwritten annotations sent a shiver straight through the royal household, changing the entire narrative of the inheritance. This wasn't William going rogue. This was a mandate. One specific note circulated quietly among senior staff, leaving archivists completely speechless. Stewardship requires protection from ambition disguised as service. It was the ultimate piece of shade thrown from beyond the grave, an undeniable confirmation that Queen Elizabeth had anticipated future attempts to commercialize the crown's assets long before she passed. She knew exactly what was coming, and she built a fortress to stop it. The public instantly picked up on the profound wisdom behind this move. A viewer named @KathleenDara4585 pointed out the brilliant foresight of the late monarch, commenting, "William is doing the right thing by protecting the monarchy. The Queen was a wise woman who knew what she was doing." Another commenter, @HarpreetBular5128, echoed this exact sentiment while mocking the luxury hospitality proposals, writing, "She was a wise and far-seeing queen. Tom and Camilla want UK to become cookdom instead of kingdom." The message from the public was loud and clear. The legendary monarch had engineered a perfect defense system to outmaneuver the commercial ambitions of the Parker-Bowles family before they could ever take root, and the people were entirely here for it. At the very center of this sudden ironclad lockdown stood Princess Anne, playing a critical and highly influential role that ended all internal debate before it could even start. Anne has long been recognized as one of the Queen's most disciplined, no-nonsense confidants, a royal who famously does not suffer fools or tolerate rule breakers. When the trust procedures were triggered, she was brought in to personally review the sealed correspondence, authenticate her mother's handwritten directives, and oversee the legal transfer of authority to her nephew, William. Her direct involvement carried immense, undeniable weight within royal circles. The second Princess Anne validated the covenant, any hopes Camilla's lawyers had of delaying or challenging the transfer completely collapsed. Nobody argues with the Princess Royal. With her backing secured, new oversight teams, fiercely loyal to William, immediately marched into land administration offices and archival departments. They quietly but firmly removed existing advisors who had been connected to Tom's luxury hospitality proposals. The public watched this swift enforcement with absolute satisfaction, seeing it as a necessary cleansing of the palace. A viewer named @LordisLittle5419 captured the mood perfectly, stating, "Camilla's children, Tom and Camilla Bowles, are so hungry to be royal children with wealth and power. Prince William was smart and brave to safe the monarchy and inheritance for the true royal family." Fans recognized this as a multi-generational master plan, with @GayVardy4571 simply adding, "Well done, Prince William and Queen Elizabeth II," celebrating the seamless tag team effort between the late monarch and her heirs to secure the kingdom's legacy. What made the situation even more striking and deeply unsettling for his critics was William's absolute refusal to publicly defend his actions or issue any dramatic statements. He avoided direct public confrontation with Camilla or Tom Parker-Bowles entirely. There were no leaked shouting matches, no angry press releases, and no defensive interviews. Instead, William chose the most powerful weapon available to him: total silence. He let the ironclad legal framework left behind by his grandmother speak for him. Palace staff viewed this silence as a brilliant strategic move designed to contain the drama and prevent a media circus, even as the internal balance of influence was rapidly shifting. By refusing to argue, William made it clear that this wasn't a petty family squabble, it was the execution of the law. The digital audience recognized the inherent strength in William's adherence to these strict boundaries. Commenter @SandyPage1024 rallied behind his disciplined approach, stating, "William is a good man. He follows the rules."
The legal protections surrounding the $200 million estate were so comprehensive and layered that even advisors sympathetic to Camilla privately admitted the system was virtually impossible to challenge without causing a catastrophic public scandal. As the transition unfolded, the reality of what William had actually inherited became undeniable. He wasn't just a beneficiary receiving a massive fortune, he was operating as the active guardian of a hidden royal fortress designed to survive internal division and external pressure. The comments section mirrored this distinction perfectly. Viewers like Norma Marshall 3804 and TMK12MA repeatedly hammered home the phrase, "William is protecting the monarchy," while Jill Brooks 9342 noted he was protecting the estate, and Julia Miller 8877 added, "William did the right thing. He is protecting the crown." The public saw past the surface-level family drama and recognized a historic act of stewardship. The consensus was perhaps best summarized by @DSK211, who firmly declared anyone outside the royal bloodline has no business making decisions about or benefiting from these properties. Yet beneath the controlled, elegant legal process, a profound unease continued to spread through the palace corridors. Queen Elizabeth had handed her grandson the ultimate authority to decide who remained inside the sacred gates of the royal legacy and who would remain permanently outside them. The doors were locked, the keys were turned, and Tom Parker Bowles found himself completely severed from the hidden empire. But as the shock of the lockout began to wear off, the initial silence from Camilla's camp started to morph into something much more dangerous. They were not simply going to walk away quietly. A wave of frozen smiles and icy tension was about to push the blended family to a dangerous breaking point, setting the stage for a desperate search for a legal loophole that could tear the whole system down. The tension behind those heavy palace doors didn't just stay in the legal offices. It spilled right into the private dining rooms and sitting areas, turning the royal household into an absolute pressure cooker. You can only imagine the kind of psychological warfare happening at the breakfast table when the people involved have to look at each other while pretending everything is completely fine for the cameras. Officially, the press offices were churning out the usual boring updates about charity galas and royal ribbons, but behind the scenes, the staff was witnessing what they described as the era of frozen smiles. Communication between William's team at Kensington Palace and Camilla's camp at Clarence House completely dried up, reduced to stiff, formal emails vetted by lawyers before being sent. The gossip vibrating through the walls was that Camilla was absolutely not taking this lying down. She reportedly ordered her personal legal advisors to launch an exhausting, covert review of the entire covenant, demanding they scrutinize every single comma, trust condition, and signature. She wanted a loophole, any microscopic flaw in the late Queen's paperwork that could break William's exclusive control and give her son, Tom, a foot back in the door. But the more these high-priced attorneys clawed through the confidential estate files late into the night, the more they realized they were dealing with a legal masterpiece. Queen Elizabeth hadn't just thrown up a simple wall. She had built a multi-layered iron curtain designed to withstand a siege from her own family. When you look at the public's reaction to this behind-the-scenes legal standoff, the level of absolute fury directed at Camilla's side of the family is wild. The internet has basically turned into a giant cheering section for William, and the comments are getting increasingly personal. People are digging up decades of messy history, viewing this current estate battle as the ultimate cosmic payback. A viewer named @LeanneFight5708 went straight for the jugular, typing out exactly what a lot of old-school royal fans are thinking, saying that William was protecting the crown because we have all watched Camilla try to destroy Diana's memory and fail, and this was just another attempt to steal William's inheritance. There's this deep-seated historical resentment that has never truly gone away, and this $200 million lockout has caused all those old wounds to burst wide open again. Another commenter, @KBourgeoisM5B, didn't hold back either, writing that William made a good move by protecting the royal monarchy's legacy and successfully shutting down what they described as a greedy grab. The general public is fiercely treating Tom and his sister Laura as ambitious outsiders who need to remember their place. As @LordisLittle5419 argued in a highly upvoted comment, this was not a ruthless power move by Prince William at all. Instead, they claimed that Camilla's children are just so hungry to be royal children with wealth and power, making William incredibly smart and brave for saving the monarchy and the true inheritance for the actual royal bloodline. This brings us to the guy caught right in the crossfire of this absolute nightmare, King Charles. Can you even begin to fathom the kind of stress he's under? On one side, he has his wife whispering in his ear, furious that her children are being treated like second-class citizens and publicly humiliated by these severe restrictions. On the other side, he has his son and heir, backed by the undeniable handwritten mandates of the most legendary monarch in modern history. Charles has reportedly chosen to deal with this by crawling into total silence, avoiding the issue whenever humanly possible, because he knows that taking a side would completely shatter the family's fragile peace forever. But the public isn't giving him a pass for staying neutral. In fact, people are looking at his silence as a massive sign of weakness. A viewer named Paula Werner C10 fired off an absolute essay in the comments that perfectly captures this frustration, reminding everyone that Charles is the one who brought Camilla into the palace in the first place. They wrote about remembering very well when Charles told the world Princess Diana was unstable, concluding that he is just as guilty, and that if they were William, they would be watching Charles very closely, because he is a weak king. They even ended their comment with a straight-up prayer that Charles steps down immediately to give the throne to William and Catherine. The drama gets even stickier when you realize that people are starting to predict how this massive power shift will alter the future alliances inside the House of Windsor. With Charles looking weak and Camilla's camp desperately searching for legal cracks, some insiders are hinting that William might have to look to an unexpected source for backup. Believe it or not, some viewers think this crisis could actually bridge the gap between the two estranged brothers. The same commenter, @LeanneFight5708, dropped a fascinating theory, writing that they feel William will eventually need Harry to support his view for the future of the monarchy, and that Harry will assist him when it comes to keeping the institution protected from outside commercial exploitation. It's a wild thought, right? The idea that the ultimate threat of the Parker Bowles family commercializing the royal legacy is the one thing that forces William and Harry to stand together as Diana's sons. Because at the end of the day, the public draws a massive, unyielding line at the bloodline. Viewers like Emily Krimmelbein are pointing out that when King Charles passes away, Camilla will have more than enough private money to put her kids up with whatever luxury lifestyle they want, but they just can't have the palace assets. The consensus is that anyone outside the direct hereditary line has absolutely no business touching national heritage. And as the legal loops tighten and the administrative teams purge the last of Tom's business allies from the estate channels, the reality of the Queen's final trap is becoming an absolute nightmare for Camilla's inner circle, leaving them to wonder if there's any card left to play, or if the door has been slammed in their faces forever.
The door wasn't just slammed, it was officially welded shut with a level of finality that has left the entire Parker Bowles faction completely reeling. By the time Prince William completed the final, highly sensitive phase of the estate transfer, everyone inside the palace walls understood that Queen Elizabeth's hidden strategy had reached its ultimate intended conclusion.
The legal protections surrounding the $200 million estate network were no longer just temporary safeguards thrown up during a tricky transition period to calm things down. They had officially become permanent, ironclad anti-commercial clauses that completely eliminated any possibility of ever transforming this historical estate into a hospitality brand, a luxury retreat for billionaires, or a private investment venture. The language hidden within the covenant explicitly prohibited any future reclassification efforts, restricted external corporate partnerships, and completely blocked any form of commercial licensing tied to the estate's historical identity. Several palace advisors privately admitted that these protections were among the most aggressive, comprehensive, and detailed they had ever seen attached to private royal property. Instead of prioritizing profitability, corporate expansion, or generating massive revenue streams, the late Queen's framework focused entirely on absolute preservation, historical continuity, and long-term royal responsibility. The entire financial architecture connected to the estate was reorganized from top to bottom to protect the assets from future family disputes, succession complications, or outside commercial claims. Legal experts who examined the final arrangement quietly acknowledged that trying to reverse or dismantle this system would now be an extraordinarily difficult, if not completely impossible task, because you would have to directly challenge the documented intentions of Queen Elizabeth II in an open court of law. At the exact same time, Tom Parker Bowles reportedly found his remaining business connections to the estate completely and permanently severed. Every single individual previously linked to his luxury hospitality discussions or high-end branding proposals was quietly but systematically removed from the palace advisory channels as William's new oversight teams tightened operational control across every single department. While no public accusations or formal statements were made against Tom personally, the restrictions surrounding his involvement became absolute. To supporters of William, these measures reflected a necessary, heroic protection of the royal legacy. To critics trapped on Camilla's side of the fence, the response still appeared unusually severe, deeply aggressive, and intensely personal. Yet perhaps the most revealing aspect of this entire high-stakes situation was the absolute silence surrounding it. Buckingham Palace avoided public confrontation entirely, offering no formal explanation regarding the Queen's restrictive covenant language. That heavy silence only fueled the suspicion that much deeper, darker tensions remained hidden just beneath the polished surface. Amid this intense legal restructuring, William made a move that seasoned royal watchers viewed as the ultimate symbolic victory lap. He made several quiet, completely unannounced visits to the estate grounds, accompanied by Catherine and their children. There were no press pools invited, no staged interview tents, and no official media alerts. Instead, a few photographs captured from an extreme distance merely showed the family walking peacefully through the isolated, protected grounds without any press events or staged appearances. To outside observers, these visits appeared deeply symbolic rather than political. William wasn't presenting himself as a triumphant, arrogant heir who had just won a massive inheritance battle. He seemed to be actively reinforcing the exact image Queen Elizabeth had intended from the start, one of stewardship, continuity, and controlled restraint. By then, the larger historical meaning of the Queen's covenant was becoming entirely impossible to ignore. She had not simply protected land, wealth, or physical property. She had quietly built a lasting historical barrier against the very future she feared could eventually reshape and destroy the monarchy itself. She foresaw the rise of the influencer era and celebrity culture, and she used the $200 million estate to draw a line in the sand. When you look at the digital streets, the public reaction to this final victory is a total landslide of support for William, and the audience is actively demanding a permanent house cleaning inside the palace. A viewer named Nancy Simpson 3479 beautifully summarized the high stakes of the situation, writing that William is protecting the bloodline because the crown must always come first, making the assets safer and more protected, while effectively locking the door to outside ambition. The public completely rejects the idea of non-bloodline relatives using the institution as a personal piggy bank, and the calls for a total purge are getting incredibly loud. Commenters like Corazon Yago are straight up shouting to remove Camilla and her family from the palace entirely, while Anne McFiddle agreed completely, typing out that it is time to put the entire Parker Bowles family out on their own because they are adults who need to take their mother with them to some other area of the kingdom, concluding with a dramatic command to exile them all. The historical defense of Princess Diana's legacy is dominating the conversation, with Leanne Fate 5078 pointing out that William was protecting the crown because we have all watched Camilla try to destroy Diana's memory and fail, so this was just stopping her from stealing William's true inheritance. The crowd firmly believes that legitimate royalty belongs strictly to Diana's bloodline, a sentiment hammered home by Harpreet Bhullar 5128, who simply noted that William is Diana's son and is legitimate royalty, while DSK 211 argued that anyone outside the royal bloodline has absolutely no business making decisions about or benefiting from these properties. People aren't even worried about the financial survival of the outsiders, with Emily Krimmelbein pointing out that when King Charles dies, Camilla will have more than enough money to put her kids up with anything they want. They just can't have the sacred assets of the palace. Ultimately, Queen Elizabeth's final gamble completely achieved its intended conclusion, successfully reshaping the modern royal power structure long after her passing. What initially appeared to be a straightforward family dispute over a hidden inheritance slowly unfolded into a historic, definitive battle over the very identity of the British monarchy itself. The late Queen looked far into the future, identified the vulnerabilities within her own household, and trusted William above all others to act as the ultimate shield against the commercialization of their history. He proved himself to be a cautious, disciplined guardian, entirely rejecting the allure of private luxury expansion in favor of long-term responsibility and national duty. By permanently freezing out the outside ambitions of the Parker Bowles family, William didn't just secure an estate, he secured the future integrity of the throne for generations to come. As the silence continues to surround the deepest secrets of the hidden covenant, the world is left with a profound sense of awe at the brilliant, quiet chess match played by the late monarch and executed perfectly by the future king. The doors have been locked, the oversight teams are in place, and the monarchy has successfully defended its legacy before it could be transformed into something it was never intended to be. So as we close this explosive chapter of modern royal history, the ultimate question rests with you. What do you think? Was Prince William simply acting as a loyal, disciplined grandson, protecting Queen Elizabeth's sacred legacy? Or did he pull off a ruthless, calculated power move to shut Camilla's family out of the inner circle forever? Share your true thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more unfiltered royal stories and hidden secrets.